Captain Aaron Taylor guided the patrol skimmer across Vermisa's wide red deserts. The sun beat down in harsh waves, turning the sand to a glowing sea of rust. Aaron's scanners picked up an irregular life sign far beyond the usual travel routes. He frowned at the readout. Official orders forbade stray missions, but something in that single pulse tugged at his heart. He directed the skimmer toward a distant cluster of metal cages and ramshackle tents. From a low ridge, Aaron crept forward and saw two armed guards pacing outside a small compound. They shouted at a line of chained figures kneeling in dust. One guard struck a bound prisoner, and the cry that followed chilled Aaron's spine. Without conscious thought, he activated his comm. "Control, this is Talor," he said. "I'm investigating unauthorized slave operations, requesting immediate backup." Static crackled. No reply. The guards noticed movement on the ridge and trained their rifles on Aaron's position. He gripped the edge of the ridge, heart pounding, and spoke softly to himself. "This is wrong. I can't leave her here." He dropped down, rolling to his feet. Aaron sprinted toward the nearest guard, firing a flash grenade that bloomed in bright white light. The second guard turned to see the first drop, clutching his ears. Aaron dashed forward, kicking the guard's weapon away, and tapping the stunned setting on his pulse baton. A soft blue arc leaped from the baton and pinned the guard to the sand. Both men lay stunned. Inside the cage, a small alien girl crouched on scurred knees. Her skin was pale green, her large violet eyes wide with terror. She trembled as Aaron crouched before her. He spoke gently. "Hey there. It's okay now. I'm here to help." She stared, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Aaron released her bonds with a toolkit from his belt. The cold metal links fell aside and clattered in the sand. He offered her a canteen. She drank in greedy gulps, water spilling down her chin. Aaron wiped her face with the corner of his sleeve. Her lips curved into the faintest sign of trust. "Can you stand?" he asked. The girl nodded, her legs weak. He wrapped his arm around her waist and lifted her up. She tucked into his side, still shivering. Aaron called his ship. "Taylor to Sentinel. I have a rescued civilian. Prep the med bay for a young patient. Priority 1. The ship's engines hummed in the distance as it adjusted course for Vermisa. He half carried, half supported the girl back across the dunes. Each step sank into the hot sand, but Aaron paid no mind. He whispered, "You're safe now," and she looked up at him with grateful, shining eyes. Inside the Sentinel's med bay, the girl lay on a crisp bed. Aaron watched as the ship's doctor checked her vital signs. She closed her eyes, drifting into sleep. As the desert sun set outside, Aaron stood at the viewport, gazing out at the first stars of evening. In that vast darkness, he felt a new purpose rising in his chest. He had saved a life tonight, and with it, perhaps he had saved something far greater. The chance for hope on Vermisa. Captain Aaron Taylor guided the small medical transport shuttle toward the Sentinel's hangar. Inside, the ship felt cool and quiet compared to the blazing desert outside. The pale green girl lay on a narrow biobed, wrapped in a soft blanket. Her breathing was steady but shallow. Aaron watched as the ship's doctor, Lieutenant Maravos, scanned her with a handheld bioanalyzer. "She's dehydrated and exhausted," Mara said, "but no lasting damage. Give her proper rest and nutrition, and she'll recover." Aaron nodded. He settled into a seat beside the biobed. The girl's large violet eyes fluttered open. She looked around, confusion and fear flickering across her delicate features. Aaron spoke softly. "You're safe here. This is Captain Taylor. What's your name?" She blinked, then whispered in a language Aaron did not recognize. Mara leaned close and translated. "She says she has no name now. Her people took it away." Aaron's heart tightened. He knelt and offered his hand. "Then I'll call you Lyra. I promise to help you find your real name and your home." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She wrapped her small fingers around Aaron's. He squeezed gently. "Sleep now," he told her. "I'll be right here." Over the next hours, Erin arranged a private cabin near the med bay for Lyra. Crew members left food parcels and soft toys at the door. Some offered gentle smiles. Others muttered that carrying a slave free from punishment risked their careers. Erin ignored the complaints. He only cared that Lyra felt safe. On the second day, Lyra sat in a low-mesh chair, nibbling at steamed vegetables. Erin joined her, describing planets they had visited: the crystal lakes of Isola, the floating cities of Elysia, and the glowing forests of Velmaris. He spoke in simple sentences, letting her see the stars beyond her trauma. As he spoke, Lyra's shoulders relaxed. She asked small questions: how fast the Sentinel could travel, which stars were nearest home. Erin answered each one, delighted by her curiosity. That evening, Lyra slipped from her chair and toddled toward a viewport. She pressed her forehead to the glass and stared at the galaxy swirling beyond. Erin watched her silhouette against the starfield. He stepped close and pointed out a bright blue star. "That's Corvus Prime," he said. "A peaceful world. You might see suns like that where you came from." Lyra reached out as if to touch the distant light. Then she turned to Erin and managed a small, genuine smile. Erin felt warmth blossom in his chest. He realized Lyra was beginning to trust him. But not everyone on the ship agreed with Erin's choice. In the mess hall, murmurs rose when Lyra joined the crew for meals. Some whispered she would bring trouble. Others argued that rescue was noble. Erin confronted the dissent quietly. "We're a crew," he told them. "Our duty is to protect the innocent." Slowly, attitudes shifted. Crew members spoke kindly to Lyra, taught her basic shipboard routines, and even let her try the ship's gravity field simulator. She laughed for the first time, a bright, tinkling sound that echoed through the corridors. As the Sentinel charted a course toward the outer rim, Erin stood in the cockpit alongside Lyra. She peered at the controls with wonder. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "Tomorrow, we search for your past. Rest now. Big adventures await." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with hope. In that silent moment between stars, captain and rescued child forged a new bond, one that promised healing, courage, and the dawn of a shared destiny. The Sentinel glided through open space, leaving Vermiss's red dunes far behind. In the quiet hum of the corridors, Lyra wandered with cautious steps. Erin watched her from a distance, seeing both her curiosity and her fear. Ever since her rescue, shadows of her past had haunted her every move. One afternoon, Lyra slipped into the small workshop off the cargo bay. The room was lined with tools, drone parts, and half-finished star charts. She paused before a workbench where an old map of the Vermisson sector lay rolled out. Faded ink traced the routes between stars, and small dots marked distant systems. Lyra's fingers trembled as she recognized a symbol, an ornate crest painted in silver ink. She pressed her palm to the paper, closing her eyes. Erin entered the workshop quietly. "That mark is from your homeworld's royal fleet," he said softly. Lyra's eyes snapped open. She stared at him, mouth agape. "You know it," she whispered. "I found it in the slave camp's records," Erin replied. "They forced you to draw it after they broke your family's fleet." His voice grew firm. "But I can help you find where it leads." Lyra shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They hurt me," she said, voice trembling. "I don't want to remember." Erin knelt beside her. "You don't have to face it now," he said gently, "but hiding from the past won't set you free." He laid a hand on her shoulder. "When you're ready, we'll follow the path you drew." For the next 2 days, Lyra practiced self-defense under Erin's guidance. In the ship's small training room, she learned to parry with a short staff and dodge low strikes. At first, she moved tentatively, glancing over her shoulder at every echo. Erin stood behind her, guiding her grip and posture. "Keep your eyes on your opponent," he taught. "Trust what you see, not what you fear." Lyra nodded and tried again. This time, she struck the practice dummy with confidence, her staff tapping solidly against its padded frame. Aaron smiled. "Better," he said. "You're growing stronger." At night, Lyra wrestled with her dreams. She saw the slave master's face, felt cold chains, heard distant screams. She woke in a sweat, her breath coming in short gasps. Aaron was always there, offering a cool cloth and a gentle voice. "You're safe," he reminded her. "The past cannot reach you here." One morning, Lyra returned to the workshop. With trembling fingers, she unrolled the star chart again. This time, she studied the crested symbol with clear eyes. Aaron stood quietly, ready to help. Lyra pointed to two clusters of stars connected by thin lines. "Here," she said. "And here." She touched the dots lightly. "This was the ship my father commanded. And this is where the palace orbits." Aaron nodded. "Then we know where to go." He recorded the coordinates in his datapad. Lyra watched him, hope shining behind her violet eyes. As the Sentinel adjusted its course, Lyra's shoulders straightened. The weight of her memories still lingered, but so did a new determination. With Aaron at her side, she felt ready to face the darkness of her past and claim the light of her future. Captain Aaron Taylor stood at the helm of the Sentinel as the ship slipped into the uncharted sector of space. Behind him, Lyra hovered at a navigation console, her small fingers moving across glowing displays. The coordinates she had marked guided them toward a secret stronghold hidden among asteroids and nebulae. "Steady now," Aaron said, voice calm. "This route is rarely used. The rocks and gas clouds can scramble our sensors." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes bright with focus. She remembered the drill Aaron taught her. Trust the instruments, not her fear. She plotted a winding path through shifting asteroid fields, each boulder outlined against streaking starlight. The ship shuddered as it brushed close to giant rocks, but Lyra guided them without error. At last, a dim beacon blinked on the main screen. Aaron's lips curved into a relieved smile. "You did well," he told Lyra. "This is the hidden court." Beyond the viewport, a cluster of sleek spires emerged from a rocky moon. Metallic towers glinted beneath a violet nebula, their shapes elegant and curved. Anchor cables attached the spires to the moon's surface, and small transport shuttles glided between them. Lyra stared in awe. "It looks like a palace," she whispered. "It was," Aaron replied. "Once home to your family." They docked at a landing platform where two guards in dark uniforms waited. Both sized up Lyra with guarded eyes. Aaron stepped forward, hands raised in greeting. "I am Captain Aaron Taylor of the United Galactic Patrol," he announced. "This child is Princess Lyra of the Vermison line. We seek entry under sovereign immunity." The taller guard hesitated, then tapped a wrist console. A moment later, the guards saluted and opened the platform's doors. Lyra's heart pounded as they entered the grand hall. High ceilings arched above, supported by carved pillars depicting the history of her people. Holographic tapestries glowed, showing proud ancestors in ceremonial robes. Lyra's hand closed around Aaron's. "It is beautiful," she breathed. Aaron squeezed her hand. "Yes, but empty now." They passed empty corridors and silent chambers. Broken statues of former rulers lay half-buried in dust. A grand staircase led to a balcony overlooking the central court. Lyra climbed slowly, each step echoing in the stillness. At the top, they found a circular chamber lined with hologlasses. On a central pedestal lay a crystalline orb, pulsing with faint blue light. Aaron lifted the orb carefully. "This is the heart of Vermisa," he said. "It binds the royal line to the people." Lyra's breath caught. She touched the orb, and for a moment, its light flared. Images filled the chamber. Green fields, flowing rivers, crowds cheering the young princess. Lyra saw herself in white robes, smiling as she reached out to her people. Tears filled her eyes. She snapped her gaze to Aaron, voice thick. "This is mine." "It is," Erin said softly. "And soon you will stand before your people to show them their queen has returned." Lyra nodded, steadying herself. The weight of her future pressed upon her, but she felt a new strength within. With Erin guiding her, she had journeyed through fear, found her past, and now held the promise of her people's hope. Together, they would bring the hidden court back to life. The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Captain Erin Towler led Lyra onto the arid surface of Vermissa's dead moon. The pale dust stirred under their boots, drifting in pale clouds. Before them rose the fallen palace, a grand station carved into the moon's rocky heart. Its once polished corridors now lay silent, half in shadow, half in harsh light. Lyra's pulse quickened. Every etching and curved arch spoke of her heritage. She reached out, brushing a finger against a cracked mural showing her ancestors in flowing robes. The stone had chipped away in places, but the pride of that lineage remained clear. Erin kept watch as Lyra moved slowly down the corridor. "We must find the throne room," he said. "That is where the royal registers are kept." He gestured to a door carved with twin phoenixes, emblems of Vermissa's rebirth. The door groaned as Erin pushed it open, revealing a vast hall littered with fallen manors and broken pylons. Inside, pools of starlight spilled through collapsed windows. Lyra stepped toward a grand dais at the far end. There, half buried in the dust, lay a silver crown etched with violet gems. Erin knelt beside it and brushed away debris. "Your people wore this when they swore oaths of unity," he explained. Lyra's breath caught as she picked up the crown. It felt cold but weighty in her hands. She lifted it over her head and placed it upon her dark curls. The gems caught the starlight and glowed softly, casting violet reflections on the dusty floor. Lyra straightened, closing her eyes, and felt a sudden rush of warmth, as if her people's voices whispered in her ear. Erin scanned the room's edges. "The registers should be nearby," he said, pointing to a raised alcove. They climbed low stairs to reach a sealed vault door inscribed with ancient script. Lyra traced the letters, recalling Erin's lessons in her language. She spoke the words, and the door clicked open. Rows of holoslates floated inside, each displaying names, dates, and genealogies. Lyra navigated them deftly, scanning until she found a record marked with her own name. Her full title appeared: Lyra Amaranthin, heir to the throne of Vermissa. Erin recorded the data with his datapad, confirming the Dominion's coordinates and the location of surviving loyalists. Suddenly, a distant rumble shook the hall. Lyra's eyes widened. Outside, the moon's surface trembled as metallic footsteps approached. Erin drew his pulse pistol. "They'd found us," he warned. Lyra steadied herself, crown still perched on her head. She squared her shoulders and held up a holoslate showing her title and lineage. "We have proof," she declared. "We demand safe passage to reclaim our right." The doors burst open, and 5 armored figures stormed in. At their leaves stood a tall officer bearing a warlord's insignia, the same symbol Erin had rescued Lyra from. He sneered at the crown. "You are nothing but a lost child," he snarled. Lyra met his gaze without flinching. "I am Queen Lyra of Vermissa," she said, voice clear. "And you have no claim here." Behind her, Erin stepped forward, weapon at the ready. For a tense moment, silence reigned. Then the officer barked orders. His troops hesitated, caught between loyalty to the warlord and awe at the young girl crowned before them. Lyra felt a surge of confidence. She raised her hand, and in that quiet power, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The fallen palace trembled no more. It stood witness to a restored dynasty, and at its heart, Lyra, the once enslaved girl, claimed her birthright as queen. Captain Erin Towler steered the Sentinel toward the hidden rendezvous point on the far side of Vermissa's moon. Below them, a battered colony clung to life in a network of caves and tunnels. The exiles lived here, far from their home, guarding old hopes and whispered legends. As the shuttle's ramp lowered, Lyra Amaranthin stepped onto uneven rock, the crystalline orb, her people's heart, glowing softly in her arms. Erin followed, pulse pistol holstered, but ready. Near the entrance, a dozen grim-faced figures, men and women in worn uniforms, watched them approach. An older man in a faded cloak blocked the way. His silver hair lay in tangled strands, and his bright eyes measured Lyra with suspicion. "We have heard rumors," he said, voice low. "But children do not wear crowns." Lyra straightened. She felt the weight of her crown and the warmth of the orb against her chest. With steady steps, she moved before Erin. "I am Lyra Amaranthine," she declared, her voice ringing clear in the tunnel. "I carry our line's heart. I ask for your loyalty, not as a child, but as your queen." A murmur passed through the group. Erin watched Lyra's calm face, her fingers tightening on the orb's silver casing. He knew this was her moment. The cloaked man raised an eyebrow. "Proof," he challenged. "Show us the registers." Erin pressed a wrist console, and a holomap sprang to life between them. It shimmered with names and dates, royal decrees, family trees, and lists of loyal soldiers. Lyra stepped forward and activated a royal seal encoded in her DNA. The seal glowed on the holomap, marking her place in the lineage. Gasps echoed in the dim light. The cloaked man's jaw clenched. He looked at Lyra, then at her glowing heart. "By the old ways," he breathed. "The seal is true." Lyra held out the orb. Its blue light pulsed gently. "This heart binds me to you," she said. "With it, I reclaim my duty. With your strength and mine, we will bring peace back to Vermisa." The exiles exchanged uneasy looks. A younger soldier, a lanky woman with fierce eyes, stepped forward. "If you lead us, princess," she said, "we will stand by you. But we will not follow empty promises." Lyra nodded. She placed the orb on a carved stone altar at the tunnel's entrance. Its light spread across the walls, illuminating murals of past victories and fallen heroes. "Then see my promise," Lyra said softly. "I will restore our home. I will free our people." Silence fell as the orb's glow died down. The older man removed his cloak and offered his hand. "My loyalty is yours, Queen Lyra," he said. Others stepped forward, pledging their swords, shields, and lives. Erin watched, pride filling his chest. The exiles, once broken and fearful, now knelt before the young queen. Lyra bowed her head in gratitude, her violet eyes shining with tears. When the pledges were made, Lyra turned to Erin. "Thank you," she whispered. Erin smiled. "You did this," he said. "Your people believe in you." As the exiles began to rally around their new queen, torches lit the cave in golden light. Lyra stood among them, heart steady and true. In that glow, the promise of a reclaimed kingdom felt real. Together with Erin and her loyal exiles, Queen Lyra prepared to lead Vermisa toward a new dawn. The hidden enclave buzzed with activity as Lyra Amaranthine prepared her people for the coming challenge. Captain Erin Towler watched from the command platform as Lyra stood before a row of militia recruits. Their makeshift uniforms bore the colors of Vermisa's crest, violet and silver, but many jackets were torn and boots were mismatched. Lyra lifted her chin and spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Friends, today you learn to fight as one. Our home needs you." She demonstrated a basic salute, and the militia returned it in unison. Erin noted the strength in her tone. She was growing into her role. Under Lyra's direction, the training grounds filled with the clatter of wooden staffs and the clang of practiced swords. Erin joined the drills, correcting stances and footwork. "Keep your weight centered," he coached. "Trust your shield to protect you and your heart to guide you." Lyra moved among the soldiers, offering gentle encouragement. When a new recruit stumbled, she patted his shoulder and whispered, "Try again. You can do this." The recruit straightened and swung his staff with renewed focus. That evening, Lyra convened a council of exiles in the cavern's central hall. Rough-hewn tables bore holoprojectors and data scrolls. Representatives from mining clans, Old military officers and former courtiers took seats around her. Some folded their arms, skeptical of the young queen's plans. Erin stood beside Lyra as she addressed the council. "We face two threats," she began. "The warlords' patrols grow bolder. They hunt us by day and strike at night. We must secure our borders and protect our people." A mining chieftain, his gray beard knotted with dust, leaned forward. "And our food supplies. The crops on the surface nearly died last cycle." Lyra nodded. "We will reinforce the underground farms with recycled water from the palace condensers. I asked Clan Morris to share tech for the irrigation pumps." She met the chieftain's gaze. "In return, the crown will ensure fair trade of mined minerals with other systems." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Erin squeezed Lyra's shoulder. She smiled at him and turned back to the council. "Our unity is our strength," she said. "Together, we build a future." By dawn, a defensive plan emerged. Watch stations at key tunnels, patrols in rotating shifts, and a diplomacy team to request aid from the United Galactic Patrol. Lyra tapped her comlink. "Captain Talor, please relay our request for starfighter support." Erin saluted. "Message sent, Your Majesty." Days later, Lyra led a scouting party to the Enclave's outer rim. The moon's pale surface stretched beneath them, craters stained with dust. Scouts returned with urgent news. The warlords' patrol ships had been spotted near the eastern crater. Lyra steadied her breath. She and Erin climbed into an armored rover. "Stay close," she told their escort. The rover's engines rumbled as they raced toward the crater's edge. At the rim, they saw 3 patrol shuttles gliding low. Lyra raised her voice. "All units, hold position. Do not fire unless they attack." Her calm command echoed across the plain. The warlord's shuttles hovered, scanning. Lyra stepped forward, rover's comm speaker raised. "This is Queen Lyra of Vermisa," she announced. "You trespass on my land. Depart now or face the consequences." For a tense moment, the shuttle's engines whined. Then, surprisingly, they pulled back and lifted away, leaving the crater in silence. Lyra exhaled, relief flooding her. Erin clapped her on the back. "You did it," he said. Lyra watched the last shuttle disappear into the violet sky. She felt the weight of leadership, but also its rewards. Trials lay ahead, but she did not face them alone. With her people rallied and Erin at her side, Queen Lyra stood ready to defend Vermisa and guide her realm toward peace. Dawn broke with a faint glow over Vermisa's ruined moon. Queen Lyra Amaranthine stood atop the fortress wall of the Silver Spire. Below her, the exile militia prepared defenses. Crystal barriers hummed to life, and lookouts took their stations. Captain Erin Talor moved among the ranks, offering calm words and last-minute checks of pulse rifles. Lyra watched the horizon, where dark shapes grew against the nebula's violet light. The warlord's fleet had arrived, 5 gunships and a dozen troop transports. Their weapons glinted like cold steel in the rising sun. Lyra's heart pounded, but she drew a steady breath. "Hold fast," she called to her people. "Remember what you fight for: our home, our freedom, our future." At her signal, the militia trumpeter sounded the call to battle. The crystal barriers raised shields high, and Lyra took her place beside Erin on the parapet. The first wave of warlord troops advanced across the dusty plain, heavy boots kicking up clouds of pale dust. Erin fired a warning shot into the air. "They must see we stand ready," he shouted. The soldiers returned fire, and laser bolts scorched the ground between the lines. Lyra leaned forward, studying the enemy's approach. As the transports landed, armored troops poured out. Lyra activated a control panel. From hidden launchers, guided drones shot skyward, buzzing around the enemy shuttles. The drones struck engines and sensors, forcing the transports to skid and retreat under smoke. The warlord's gunships swooped in low, raining plasma across the battlefield. Lyra raised her arm, and the crystal barrier extended to cover the forward trench. Soldiers behind the shield were safe, while those at the wall returned fire, targeting the gunship's weak points. In the chaos, Lyra spotted a small squad trying to flank the fortress. She turned to Erin. "We need to stop them before they breach the east gate." Erin saluted. "Right behind you, Your Majesty." They sprinted down a spiral staircase into the courtyard. Around them, the militia clashed with the enemy. Lyra joined a group of archers armed with pulse bows. She took aim at a moving target and released. A blue bolt soared true, knocking the soldier's rifle from his hands. The archer beside her cheered. Erin moved to secure the gate. He jammed a stabilizer beam into the ground, and the heavy iron door slid shut with a resonant clang. Enemy troops battered against it, but the barrier held firm. Above, one gunship broke formation, coming in for a strafing run. Lyra raised a comm to her drone operator. "Lock onto that ship. Now." She glanced skyward as a swarm of drones encircled the gunship, disarming its weapons. It spun out of control and crashed beyond the south ridge. Encouraged, the militia pressed forward. Enemy forces, seeing their shuttles down and transports disabled, began to retreat. Lyra marched to the center of the courtyard, rallying her people. "This is our land," she proclaimed. "Stand strong, and they cannot break us." With one final push, the militia drove the warlord's troops back into the open plain. The last gunship lifted off, limping away under heavy fire from the crystal cannons. When silence fell, Lyra lowered her pulse bow. Dust settled around the silver spire, and the sky cleared to soft violet. Her soldiers gathered, cheering their queen. Erin approached, offering a water canteen. "You led them well," he said. Lyra accepted the water, her face shining with both sweat and triumph. "We did it together," she replied. She turned to her people, raising her free hand. "Vermissa stands free." Echoing her cry, the militia cheered. In that moment on the battlefield of the Silver Spire, a new legend was born. Queen Lyra, who defended her people with courage, wisdom, and unwavering hope. Dawn broke with a faint glow over Vermissa's ruined moon. Queen Lyra Amaranthine stood atop the fortress wall of the Silver Spire. Below her, the exile militia prepared defenses. Crystal barriers hummed to life, and lookouts took their stations. Captain Erin Teller moved among the ranks, offering calm words and last-minute checks of pulse rifles. Lyra watched the horizon, where dark shapes grew against the nebulous violet light. The warlord's fleet had arrived. 5 gunships and a dozen troop transports. Their weapons glinted like cold steel in the rising sun. Lyra's heart pounded, but she drew a steady breath. "Hold fast," she called to her people. "Remember what you fight for. Our home, our freedom, our future." At her signal, the militia trumpeter sounded the call to battle. The crystal barriers raised shields high, and Lyra took her place beside Erin on the parapet. The first wave of warlord troops advanced across the dusty plain, heavy boots kicking up clouds of pale dust. Erin fired a warning shot into the air. "They must see we stand ready," he shouted. The soldiers returned fire, and laser bolts scorched the ground between the lines. Lyra leaned forward, studying the enemy's approach. As the transports landed, armored troops poured out. Lyra activated a control panel. From hidden launchers, guided drones shot skyward, buzzing around the enemy shuttles. The drones struck engines and sensors, forcing the transports to skid and retreat under smoke. The warlord's gunships swooped in low, raining plasma across the battlefield. Lyra raised her arm, and the crystal barrier extended to cover the forward trench. Soldiers behind the shield were safe, while those at the wall returned fire, targeting the gunship's weak points. In the chaos, Lyra spotted a small squad trying to flank the fortress. She turned to Erin. "We need to stop them before they breach the east gate." Erin saluted. "Right behind you, Your Majesty." They sprinted down a spiral staircase into the courtyard. Around them, the militia clashed with the enemy. Lyra joined a group of archers armed with pulse bows. She took aim at a moving target and released. A blue bolt soared true, knocking the soldier's rifle from his hands. The archer beside her cheered. Erin moved to secure the gate. He jammed a stabilizer beam into the ground, and the heavy iron door slid shut with a resonant clang. Enemy troops battered against it, but the barrier held firm. Above, one gunship broke formation, coming in for a strafing run. Lyra raised a comm to her drone operator. "Lock onto that ship. Now." She glanced skyward as a swarm of drones encircled the gunship, disarming its weapons. It spun out of control and crashed beyond the south ridge. Encouraged, the militia pressed forward. Enemy forces, seeing their shuttles down and transports disabled, began to retreat. Lyra marched to the center of the courtyard, rallying her people. "This is our land," she proclaimed. "Stand strong, and they cannot break us." With one final push, the militia drove the warlord's troops back into the open plain. The last gunship lifted off, limping away under heavy fire from the crystal cannons. When silence fell, Lyra lowered her pulse bow. Dust settled around the silver spire, and the sky cleared to soft violet. Her soldiers gathered, cheering their queen. Erin approached, offering a water canteen. "You led them well," he said. Lyra accepted the water, her face shining with both sweat and triumph. "We did it together," she replied. She turned to her people, raising her free hand. "Vermissa stands free." Echoing her cry, the militia cheered. In that moment, on the battlefield of the Silver Spire, a new legend was born. Queen Lyra, who defended her people with courage, wisdom, and unwavering hope.